Welcome to Docs on Call, brought to you by Northeast OBGYN.
If you intentionally spend time reading to a baby while it's in the womb, will that child grow up loving to read? Is that the truth or is that a myth? Good evening, I'm Elizabeth Nalf McDonald. Tonight on Docs on Call, our topic is pregnancy myths. This is your chance to find out what you've heard and believed all your life, if it's true or if it's not true. Dr. Christopher Stroud from Northeast OBGYN is here to either confirm or debunk those time-honored beliefs. And welcome, Dr. Stroud.
Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to be back with you.
Well, it's wonderful to have you, and I want to know the answer to that because I had an aunt who had 7 children, and on her 6th child, she read to him, and she intentionally read to him because she heard that if you read to a child, that child will grow up to be a reader, and he did. So tell me this, is it a myth or is it not?
It's a great example that for so many of the myths that we hear and we say and we repeat every day, there are examples when those myths turned out to be correct, or at least they appeared to turn out to be correct. So I can't speak to the reading one. That's actually one that I haven't come across in a while. But it's hard to imagine there'd be anything wrong with reading to your baby while it was in the womb. I think for the most part, these myths that we're going to discuss tonight are fun. Sometimes they're funny and entertaining. Occasionally, though, they can actually be misleading and, in rare cases, actually dangerous. So it's very important that we find some time to talk about what's true and what's not.
And I don't know if this would be considered dangerous, but how about the myth of, or is it a myth, of eating for 2?
I think that's a great one. Most Americans are eating for 2 before they get pregnant. We tend to overindulge in the area of food. Most experts will agree on a range of weight gain in pregnancy from around 15 to 25 pounds. So it's very simple, as any pregnant woman will tell you, to gain 15 to 25 pounds. The idea that eat all you're eating for 2 results in much greater weight gain than that, and it causes nothing but problems. So that's certainly a myth that we need to debunk.
All right, here's another one. A very good friend of mine just had a baby 5 days ago. She was not due till next week. This is her first child. I said, don't worry, first children are always a couple of weeks late. Well, that didn't happen. It was like early. So explain that one to me.
We're going to have to put that one in the myth category. That falls into fiction, I'm afraid.
No kidding.
Certainly the timing of labor has nothing to do with whether it's the first baby or whether it's the 5th baby.
Well, tell me why. What does determine a child coming early? This was an 8.5-pound little boy. 3 weeks, well, a week and a half early.
Yeah, certainly. Actually, to this day, there's much that we still don't understand about the processes that initiate labor naturally, and even more importantly, what causes labor to begin far too early and results in the premature delivery of babies. But it certainly has nothing to do with how many children the mothers had.
Okay, all right.
Sorry about that.
No, that's all right. I've learned my lesson now. Not going to tell that to anyone else. Let's talk about the myths surrounding figuring out the gender of a child. Carrying too high, or carrying a baby high, it's a boy. Carrying a baby low, it's a girl. Carrying a baby wide, it's a girl. Low, it's a... Tell me about those. Any indicators here?
I think some of the greatest myths and tales that we encounter in obstetrics are related to determining the gender of the baby. Certainly I've heard that one and many, many others. If you think about it, you have a wonderful chance of being right 50% of the time, regardless of how you fill out that story. So if the baby's high, it's a boy, or high, it's a girl, 50% of the time you'll be right. Can you imagine if we could go to Las Vegas with a 50% chance of winning every time we played the slot machine? So the reality is the gender of the baby is in no way determined or can be determined based on the size or the shape of a woman's body. That's genetic, and that's determined by her genetics, not by the baby's gender.
The thing is that these myths are proliferated. It's because of those 50% of the people who are bearing those kids, and they're saying, see, it's right, it's right. Let's talk about what we do that our moms did. How much of that is myths? Like if our mom had an easy pregnancy, we will have. Or if our mother carried a baby a certain way, we will.
Sure, to the extent that whatever we're talking about is related maybe to the mom's body type and habitus, that may or may not be related. So I think we could easily say that if a pregnant woman is built and shaped like her mother, and her mother had no difficulty delivering, well, that's encouraging that this patient now may not have problems delivering. But that's about as far as we can go.
How about stretch marks? If my mom had stretch marks, would I have stretch marks?
Yes, I'm sure that I will create some enemies in the cosmetics industry with this answer. But our viewers need to hear, please don't spend money on products that are designed to help with stretch marks. Because the reality is that's genetic, and there's really been no proof that any products can help with stretch marks or not. It's related to a woman's elasticity in her skin, and that's a genetic feature of that woman. And there are no products that are going to help or remove those.
And if a person does have stretch marks, okay, because of pregnancy, it does follow that the woman does have it, or is that a myth?
I'm sorry, say that again.
If a woman does have, if her mom did have stretch marks during pregnancy, is it an assured thing?
No, it is not at all. It's determined based on that pregnant woman's skin type and makeup, and I do not believe it's predictable from how her mother reacted to pregnancy.
Okay, now let's talk about morning sickness. We're just getting those things, we're just firing them right off here. And please call 483-8331 because we want to hear about your myths that you might think are facts, but we're going to see, and I hope they are. Some of them are facts.
Well, you know, I hope we'll get calls tonight, because the reality is, as I said, most of these are entertaining and fun, but there are some that actually get in the way of providing the care that we try to provide. So we need to debunk as many of those as we can. Okay,
morning sickness. One myth is that a woman gets morning sickness if she's going to carry, is it a boy? Do you know?
I've heard both.
Okay. Oh, well, now there's 100% truth, isn't it?
That's right.
Okay, any truth to that? Does the gender of the baby at all determine whether a woman has morning sickness?
I'm sorry, we're going to have to put that one in the fiction category as well. You know, morning sickness or severe nausea, and sometimes nausea and vomiting in pregnancy, has nothing to do with the gender of the baby.
All right, now here's another one. And in fact, Eugene, who's running camera, brought this up because I asked two single men, I think they're single, what in pregnancy myths did you hear? And they're saying, well, we don't really know. But he did say if you hold a pencil over a person's stomach, you will be he heard that it would determine the way it revolved would determine the sex of the child.
Sure, again, just as we talked about how the mom carries the baby, not determining gender, this is another example that you have a 50% chance of being right. So every time you flip the coin, you're going to be right 1 out of 2 times. But again, sorry, that one's got to go firmly in the fiction category.
Okay, so everything I've asked so far has been a myth. Cherie is on the phone. Cherie, let's see what you have to say. Maybe yours will turn out to be the truth. Go ahead, Cherie.
I don't have anything to comment as far as that. I have a question concerning follicular cysts and fibroids. How does that impact the ability to become pregnant?
Sure, the idea that something is causing infertility or a problem becoming pregnant. Cyst on the ovaries, as I believe you're referring to when you say follicular cysts, or fibroid tumors on the uterus. Both of those can have implications for pregnancy, can cause the inability to become pregnant, or can cause problems carrying a pregnancy, leading to preterm labor and the like. Pretty broad topic, both of those. Happy to talk more about those, maybe even an entire show just on those 2 topics.
Thanks, Reed. Do you have any other questions?
No, can you tell me, can you suggest what the next step would be as far as trying to resolve these problems, or where should I go to get more information?
Sure, good question. I mean, if you believe or have been told that you have either of those, you should see a gynecologist that's comfortable and experienced in treating those conditions. And certainly we would be happy to see you at Northeast OBGYN, as would, I'm sure, any of the gynecologists in town.
Thank you, Cherie. And up next now we have Nasa. I believe that's your pronunciation name. Go ahead.
Yes, I have a question. There is a myth that certain herbal supplements will help you go into labor. Is this true?
If I understood you correctly, the question is, are there herbal supplements that will help you go into labor?
Yes.
And there is some truth in that. You know, certainly a trick, you might say, that's been used for many, many years is the use of certain medications that are commonly used for constipation, to cause labor, castor oil being one of the probably the best examples. And as it turns out, castor oil is a natural compound that causes the release of prostaglandins, and we actually use prostaglandins to induce labor. So depending on the specifics of that herbal supplement, there may or may not be truth into the ability to start labor with those products.
Okay. Good question, Nisa. Up next is Tina. Your question for Dr. Stroud.
Hi, I was wondering if you had weird cravings during your pregnancy, like wanting to eat paper or detergent or string. Does that mean there's a health problem with the baby?
Sure, very good question. And that condition is actually not as uncommon as we might think. Very unusual cravings and sometimes wanting to consume things that are not food products like paper, or even cases of pregnant women craving to eat dirt. They can be a symptom of a more serious underlying vitamin deficiency or nutritional deficiency. So if you're pregnant and you have those cravings, you most definitely need to talk to your obstetrician about them. Now, cravings in general, and where I thought you were going maybe with this question, is if I crave this or this, does that mean that I'm having a boy or a girl? And that would have to fall into the fiction category. But what you've described is a real phenomenon, and when it occurs, we obstetricians need to know about it.
Thanks, Tina, for asking that question. Paper cravings, had not heard of that. Okay. Up next we have Mary. Mary, what is your question?
Yes, I know this is going to be funny. Ask you a question about when I am also a great-grandmother. But I was told by my mother-in-law when I was carrying my babies, I was so deathly sick all the time that I was going to have babies with hair, a lot of hair on their heads. I did. All my children were born with full heads of hair. The minute they were born, my nausea went away.
Every one of your pregnancies, you were sick, Mary?
Yes, every one.
Okay, doctor, go with this one.
Yes, great question, and I have to put that in the top five myths that we hear every day in practice. Whether it's heartburn or whether it's nausea, leading to whether the baby has hair or doesn't have hair. I'm sorry, we've got to put that one firmly in the fiction category with some of the others. Whether the baby has hair or not in no way affects the mother's digestive system. Now, the baby having hair or not having hair, that's genetically determined. And whether or not you have heartburn or not heartburn, or nausea or don't have nausea, really has nothing to do with the way the baby's head's covered with hair. Great question, though, and really it's something we hear all of the time.
I would like to make a comment.
Yes, go ahead, Mary.
I could never figure out the minute I was sick the whole time, the whole 9 months, and Dr. Lampe tried everything for me. Nothing worked. But the minute the baby was born, my nausea left.
Yes, and that's a very common phenomenon for women that are struggling with nausea in their pregnancy. In many cases, almost instantaneously, when they're no longer pregnant, their nausea begins to improve.
That was my problem. Mm-hmm.
Yes, thanks for your call.
Okay,
Thank you very
much, Mary.